Hello, I'm Cindy Loza, Managing Editor of Member Content for the Path to Purchase Institute and your Retail Media Unplugged host. I'm here in London for Retail Media Summit UK, and I'm pleased to be joined by Chris Riegel with Stratacache, a sponsor of this year's event. Chris, thanks so much for taking the time to meet with me today. To kick things off, can you tell us about your role at Stratacache?
So I'm the founder and CEO of Stratacache. I've been doing this 25 years now and lead a team of 1,250 people all around the world implementing in-store retail media solutions.
Great. We're here in London, and I often hear this, I'm sure you hear this too, is that the UK is further along when it comes to in-store than the US. What are some aspects of advertising in-store here that you wish the US would adopt?
Yeah, I'd first gotta say, I'm not sure that the UK is ahead, right?
Okay.
There's always this game where UK retailers or European retailers will say we're further ahead of the US retailers say we're further ahead of the others, so the cross-pond competition, as it were. That being said, the UK as a media market tends to be a little bit more advanced, a little bit more aggressive in out-of-home, in other forms of media, and I think you see a little bit more forward-looking point in some of the retail media in the UK because you have more shopping journeys, there's a higher frequency of that transaction. So I think you'll see some environments where you have bigger retail media estates in the same categories than you would have in the US, but it's kind of an ongoing peer competition.
And I understand your session is about in-store media, of course, naturally, specifically about digital out-of-home versus next-generation shopper marketing. Can you tell me a bit about this point of view you have here? What's the difference between building a shopper marketing network and building a digital out-of-home network?
So digital out-of-home as a industry looks at building audiences and selling those audiences. If a retailer takes that approach, it's an okay approach, but they're kind of cutting themselves short. When you look at the shopper marketing discipline, shopper marketing in store, from a retailer perspective, it's about how do I build a network with a curated experience that is helping that customer convert. Digital out-of-home traditionally is much higher in the funnel, where shopper marketing is much lower in the funnel and you're going towards that conversion point. As we see the retailers understanding of the customer behavior in store and the use case, you're seeing much more of a shopper marketing approach than a digital out-of-home approach for two reasons. One, I'm doing a better service by the customer, and two, it's much more profitable for the retailer in that you have not only the media impression value, but also the conversion value within that network.
Great, and what do you hope attendees walk away knowing after your session today?
I think the biggest thing for attendees is to come away with understanding what we call the ad tech tax. So in a lot of the out-of-store technology platforms that are trying to push their way in-store, there's very large percentages of the revenue that they take from the brands before that media comes in store. That could be 20, 30, 40, up to 60% of the revenue disappears. There's no other area of retail where a retailer would put themselves disintermediated from that source of revenue and have those intermediaries taking a chunk. So in the presentation, the goal is to at least inform and educate retailers to say, hey, you shouldn't be in business with digital out-of-home providers. They're taking the lion's share of the revenue while you're doing the lion's share of the work.
And I've seen you speak a couple times now, and you often talk about the importance of the shopper experience. How can CPG brands best connect with shoppers in store in the current retail landscape?
I think it's a key point to think about that shopper and her journey in the store. You want to understand that she's there on potentially different mission at different times. If I'm going into that store Tuesday night or Thursday night at 6 o'clock, that might be for a 15-minute stock up run versus a Saturday where I'm going to be there for 90 minutes in a different run. At different times during that journey, she might be more or less open to ideas, more or less open to solutions. That experience needs to be a curated experience through. Everything about that, you want to remove friction from the shopper's experience, make it easy, make it helpful within it, not simply blasting with ads, number one. Number two, thinking about in that curated experience, everything should be leading to a sale, leading to a solution, leading to a conversion. So as a retailer, regardless of that retailer, media is part of my business, but at the fundamental point, I'm still about converting that customer on a sale, and that's my main business. How does the media experience lead towards that in as frictionless a way as possible? And to that shopper that you're saying to her, hey, we value you as a shopper, we're helping you with solutions to drive that next trip back to your store.
How have you seen the retail media landscape evolve these past few years? I know in-store retail media is kind of a hot topic in the US, at least.
It's kind of crazy. We've been doing this 25 years, and literally in the last kind of 2 or 3 years post-COVID, it's come back to be something that's incredibly hot now, principally because if you look at retail media as a whole, you have online, you have mobile, you have in-store, and you have CTV. Online and mobile have kind of peaked and plateaued, kind of just flatlining, now plateaued. Not a lot of growth, not a lot of shrink, but pretty much level. In-store is rising like a rocket ship, CTV is rising like a rocket ship. So the end point from a retailer, and we talk to retailers all around the world constantly, there's more and more pressure on that business. Shrink, inflation, supply chain, labor cost, all these headwinds. Retail media can be that percentage of revenue coming in at a very high margin to help fill some of those gaps. If you look at companies like Walmart now, 20% of Walmart's profitability is coming from the retail media business. So it's a substantial part of that business, and it's just part of that mix. Retailers are never turning themselves into full media companies, but this can be a complement to the retail business. And if you look also at what Amazon does with the media ads commerce kind of strategy, retailers are becoming more savvy on the media side, knowing that they have to compete with Mr. Bezos.
What are some untapped potential opportunities in the in-store retail media space?
I think the biggest untapped opportunity is data. If I'm an online shopper, that retailer knows everything I did, everything I looked at, considered, shopped, surfed, etc. In store, the retailer has perfect first-party data of what I bought, but they don't know where did I spend my time. Was I in this aisle? I spent 10 minutes there. I was looking around at stuff, but I never converted. We know then you have interest, you have intent. So being able to track that customer through that environment, I know then at a digital point, I can retarget that customer to say, hey, you shopped the wine area of my store. You specifically were looking at French wines, but you didn't buy. Maybe I'm going to send you a coupon. Maybe I'm going to send you a bonus, an incentive to say next time you're in the store, maybe consider this, or help educate them around a particular topic. So that data in store is kind of a wide open frontier. And as that goes into what we call behavioral graphs and behavioral patterns for that consumer, you can make more and more predictions about future activity and future behavior based on their past actions.
What are some of the challenges in the space and any suggestions on how to solve them?
A couple of big challenges. One is certainly capital. Retailers have lots of capital. They tend not to like to deploy it on large in-store projects. It just doesn't meet the return on investment model, so that's changing. But capital is one. Internally, what we call the civil wars. Retailers have a large volume of business that comes in today in terms of trade. So building a retail media network strategy that's not just siphoning off the trade budgets and robbing from one pocket to the next. So how do you build your retail media network to go after digital dollars and digital opportunities that are net new to the business? And then really harmonizing. In-store is complex. Infrastructure, you need power, you need fixtures, you're dealing in lots of different areas of the store. Harmonizing all the teams. Retailers are very large organizations, have kind of different silos at times. Getting everyone in the retailer rowing in the same direction and building business propositions that win for everyone, including and most importantly, the shopper.
What advice do you have for CPG brand advertisers? Specifically, I've been asked in our CPG brand community, how can a mid-sized company with limited budget that's new to retail media participate in this space?
Yep. I think the biggest thing is to say, for a mid-sized brand, the larger brands in many years of retail media try to crowd out. They know how effective it is, and they try to just swamp money into the zone, as it were, to crowd out the small and the emerging brands. But you're never going to find a better targeted audience. If I'm a boutique coffee brand and I have that customer in the coffee aisle, what is the value of that customer in the consideration set on the particular area you're looking for? So I would say the advice is invest and test. In that invest and test strategy, even if that's, I don't have a ton of money, try a small subset of stores for retail media experience in a flagship retailer, partner with that retailer, build the use case to say, your shoppers are gonna love this and we're gonna show you how to do that. Retail is an incremental game, right? You're not going to change the world with one digital experience there. But if you're showing, hey, we're willing to invest in the relationship, show you where there's category growth, the brand and the category manager are always chasing growth. That innovative point of let us test this, show you how it can work, show you where it can be beneficial. And especially if I'm that coffee brand, show the retailer where the purchase of my product can add one or two other products that you might not be thinking of retailer, and I'll build a bigger basket, build a bigger bundle. Don't just make it about your brand, but make it about the bigger retail mission, and you're more likely to have success.
And last question, are there any particular technologies you're seeing that could be game changers or you're keeping in mind?
I think specifically sensor technology in store. If you think of the four walls of that store as a perfect box to be able to capture data of the customer journeys, the visits, the interest, and then using that to specifically target messaging based on tying that to loyalty, so you have permission from the customer to be able to interact with them directly, but having that ability to use sensors to really map out the journey and then how to make that more efficient in her shopping experience.
Great. Well, thanks again for joining me today.
Thank you.
That's all we have today from the Path to Purchase Institute. I'm Cindy Loza. Thanks for tuning in.